Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday edition of the Football Diehards live football show. I am Armand Marsal. As always, with me is Bobby Gomes. How's it going, my brother?
It's going great. Ready for week 9.
Yeah, man, it's a pretty exciting week. I think this is a pretty transparent week as well. We don't get these often. Not a ton to choose from as far as games to kind of have interest in. A lot of line movements here as well that we'll go over throughout the show here. We also have a ton of news. It appears that Chris Carson is expected to play today. I know he's been dealing with some hip injury that has kept him out of some games this season already. Demaryius Thomas is expected to start today as well. We got some news in Miami that Kenny Stills is not expected to play. Randall Cobb is expected to play. We'll get these, obviously the official wording throughout the show, and we'll update everyone. Stephon Diggs is also not expected to play. So I'm not sure if any of this news will kind of affect some of the, of the things we already talked about and some of the things that you're deciding to do today when you finalize your lineups. But just some information there to have at hand. Anything there that stands out to you as far as any of this, potential players not playing or playing and how you're building your lineups?
I think Steph Diggs is definitely big news for cash games. I think it kind of moves a lot of people from Kelsey to Kyle Rudolph. That would be the main thing in cash. And also the allocation of the market share in that offense. You're going to kind of have to figure out where that's going to go. Obviously, Treadwell, Aldrick Robinson, those guys are going to get bumped up. And Thielen, who's been the best receiver in football all season, so got to account for him as well.
Now, you and I when we talked on Thursday, we both liked Thielen quite a bit because we did think at that time he was kind of going to be lower owned than he should be. Do you think this Diggs news is going to bump up his ownership at all? Because you still have Gurley on the board that a lot of people are going to be trying to fit in.
Yeah, no, I think that you'll see an increase in his ownership, especially for people who might be looking to fade Gurley in tournaments. Not that That's the greatest way to go, but it's just an option. And
It's the way I'm going.
Usage. No, it's not saying it's the worst way either. I'm just saying I honestly think that you can fade both of them in tournaments with the value that's opened up.
Now, do you think
completely, but be under the field on your favorite of the two?
Now, do you think Thielen's going to be owned high enough where there's merit to fading him in tournaments? Because I still project him under, probably under 16, 17%.
Yeah, no, I don't. Honestly, if I'm probably going to be underweight on Gurley, but I kind of better. I would probably just be with the field on Thielen. I think I'm going to go. I have a couple other receivers that I kind of like a little more.
Okay.
That's just me personally, though.
No. I'm interested to hear him because that's where I'm having most of my trouble. Like, I actually paid up for Thielen because I had so much salary left over that I felt like, okay, I can pay up for Thielen. That's honest. So I'm excited to hear some of these guys because there are several players that I'm like 50-50 on, and we'll get into those today. But I definitely am excited to hear your thoughts. Before we do that, let's see here. Okay, you answered that. Okay, need for PPR: Cohen, Kamara, Lindsay, Hopkins, Kupp, Gordon. Thanks. All right, so for me, Kamara and Kupp are pretty much locked in there. I'll play Hopkins as well. I'm not too concerned about Demaryius Thomas and his impact on Hopkins. In fact, I think it might actually help him. And for me, it'll be Lindsay. I just think he's locked in for a really strong role. It's not the best of matchups, but I think he has a nice floor. So those would be my 4 in PPR.
Yeah, I love Kamara. I like Lindsay. I like Hopkins and Kupp. That would be kind of where I'd go. Is that the same? You need 4? Yeah. Kamara?
Yeah. So
Kamara, Lindsay, Hopkins, and Kupp. Yep.
There you go. Steve, both of us agree on the same 4, so hopefully that helps you out. All right, and for what everyone is here for, and that is the main slate today on DK. The first game we'll talk about, not a ton has changed there. Chicago at Buffalo. This game continues to have the lowest over-under of the slate at 38 points. The Bears are 10.5-point favorites here. They have an implied team total of 24.5. The Bills have a 14-point implied team total. Anything for you in this game, Bobby? I mean, for me, it's simply, if you can pay up for the Bears defense, do so. If you cannot afford to, you don't have to force them in your lineup, but they're in a good spot.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. Peterman's at 4K on DK, which is kind of hilarious.
I think if it was 1,500, that wouldn't take him, man.
Yeah, no. I hear you. If you like the Bears D and you want to pay up, I think that's a fine option. But other than that, this game's pretty much a wash for me.
So there you go, guys. Really nothing here for us. It's just a boring game. So on to the next one, which I think will be a little bit different. That's Tampa Bay at Carolina. This game to me has much more appeal than the other one, of course. It has a 55 over-under. It's actually gone up a point since it opened at 54. 65% continue to be on the over here. The Carolina Panthers have a 30.5 implied team total. The Bucks have a 24.5 implied team total. Give me your thoughts here, Bobby, because I know when we spoke, you liked Cam Newton, but you weren't considering him as a core play. Has that changed since Thursday?
Yeah, it's definitely changed. Cam Newton's probably the go-to guy in cash games at the quarterback position, although I think I'm probably going to go in a different direction. Probably going to go to Fitzpatrick because I think you can get more out of your lineups if you go that way in cash. But I think Cam's the top play around the industry, I would say. So, yeah, no, I like Cam. I like McCaffrey in cash games. This is a really good matchup for him. I think Mixon went for 2 touchdowns and 124 yards in the first half last week versus this Buccaneers defense. So you got to like McCaffrey. Greg Olson's also in a great spot. He's had a good price tag, so I don't hate him. The DJ Moore, like a lot of people are going to DJ Moore, and the Bucs have really struggled for slot receivers, but I think Cam spreads it out so much that I kind of be off him in tournaments, and I think he's a pretty thin play in cash. And on the Tampa Bay side, like I love Fitz, love Godwin, love Deshaun. For Godwin and Deshaun mainly for tournaments, OJ Howard for tournaments, but I think you can use Fitzpatrick in cash games.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you in this game for pretty much for your entire observation there. I really do like Cam in cash. I'm also going to go ahead and steer away from him in tournaments. I think he's a fine play in all formats. Of course, there's a high floor. I think a phenomenal ceiling here. The Bucs have just been awful this season, and against the pass. So he should easily take advantage of this opportunity this week. I like Greg Olson. I think there's some risk with him. I don't think his upside is as high as we would like it for tournaments, but I do think, he has a pretty safe floor. The matchup is phenomenal here for him. Actually, the best matchup for a tight end on this slate of the week, actually. And then Christian McCaffrey, I like him quite a bit. I'm not going to talk anyone off of him. I'm going in a different direction in tournaments, though. Just some other guys I really like. And the only thing we differ in this analysis here is I'm okay with more. The volume is not that high, but it's trending in the right direction lately. And I know they spread the ball there, and I know that the red zone stuff it's usually going to go Cam Newton, McCaffrey, but I just think that this receiver is talented enough, and the matchup against Brett Grimes is really one that favors him. And I just, when I look at his price, for me, there's very few things that he can do to fail at this price and certainly pay off. I kind of agree that there might not be a high enough upside, so that kind of does limit the excitement for him. But I still think he's a fine play, maybe thin in cash, but someone I'm going to be playing in tournaments, I think. On the other side, I agree. I think Fitzpatrick is a phenomenal tournament play. He's so volatile, but he's going to sling it. They're not going to run the ball, too much here. I don't think they're going to run the ball too much. I do think they're going to be chasing points. And Carolina has actually been, pretty strong against the run recently, at least. So this isn't a great matchup for their run game. it is worth noting Peyton Barber is very cheap, and he's going to get the work, and he's going to be their red zone back. So, I'm not going there, but certainly something worth noting there. I like Godwin a ton. I agree with you, man. I think he's the guy. In fact, yesterday's article, Vegas versus Fantasy, I talked about the Bucks a little bit, and Godwin and Howard were my two primary guys. Deshaun is a close second there. Mike Evans, surprisingly, like my least favorite of this group here, simply because of his price is so high, and they do spread the ball there, and we've seen Fitzpatrick have a very good connection with Godwin and Howard, as well as Deshaun Jackson. So I'm going to be playing Godwin in tournaments. There obviously isn't a safe floor here, which is why I wouldn't suggest him in cash. But I do think there's plenty of upside, and if he gets into the end zone this week, I think he could certainly pay off that very, very reasonable price tag by a good amount there. Any final thoughts here before we go on to the next game, Bobby?
Yeah, I think Godwin's a better play than like you said. I think he's a better play than people think. Like, I'd rather play Godwin in cash than DJ Moore. I know Godwin's not a rotational player, but the touchdown equity, and then on top of it, I think he's like 8. He has like 8 red zone targets out of 10, and I think last week, like just from the eye test, like right when Fitzpatrick came in, he targeted Godwin immediately. And he went to him multiple times, and he went to him on the 2-point conversion in the end zone. So I think Godwin's actually a better play than DJ Moore for cash games.
I actually agree there. I agree, because I think you pointed something out to me right now that makes a ton of sense, and it's the touchdown equity. When you look at the first 3 weeks, Godwin found the end zone in each of those first 3 games that Fitzpatrick was starting in. I know week 4 he started against the Bears, but he didn't play the full game, so I can't really consider that game when I'm doing my analysis, because you didn't get a full game out of Fitzpatrick. We don't know what would have happened. In that game, he didn't really do much. Godwin, that is, only caught 2 passes. But again, we didn't get a full game out of Fitzpatrick. And like you mentioned, as soon as he came into the game last week, he was looking at Godwin. So if you're paying attention, like we are right here, it's pretty clear that Godwin does have plenty of upside, plenty of touchdown equity in a good matchup at the end of the day. They're going to be, or at least a good game environment. They're going to be chasing points here, in my opinion. And they like to let Fitzpatrick sling it. So I think Godwin is one of the best value plays on this slate, if you ask me.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, so the next game, Kansas City headed to Cleveland to take on the Browns. This game has an over-under here of 51.5 points, half a point down since when it opened. The Chiefs are 7.5-point favorites here, 29.5 implied team total. Browns have a 22 implied team total here. This opened at 10-point spread, so a lot of money, at least big money, because 84% of the bets are on the Chiefs right now with the spread. But a lot of, I'm assuming sharp money is betting the Browns getting the points here. I think this game is going to be closer than Vegas is anticipating, to be honest with you. I do think the Chiefs can win outright here, but the Browns have been pretty stingy defensively, man. Any thoughts on this game? I'm gonna go ahead and attack the Browns with Kareem Hunt. I think that's the best play from the Chiefs offense. And that's it. I mean, I don't have much else. I'm not going to talk anyone off of Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to talk anyone off of the pass catchers there for the Chiefs. I think Kelsey's in a prime spot. I'm just not finding myself paying up for tight end this week. Give me your thoughts on this game, man, because I'm very interested to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so I like Kelsey a lot. I also really like Kareem Hunt. Greg Williams' defense is known to blitz, and I think that he'll be a lot more involved in the passing game, especially when you have Denzel Ward, who should be covering Tyreek Hill. Denzel Ward's been one of the top cornerbacks in the NFL all season. So I think Kelsey and Hunt should provide like a dump off, just like a cushion for Mahomes. So yeah, I like Hunt. I like Kelsey. Like I said, I think Tyreek's fine in tournaments. He's actually done a lot better on the road than he has at home. Well, he's been phenomenal on the road pretty much his entire career. Not that he does bad at home either, but double digits on the road, like almost 90% of the time. So I like that as a tournament play. I like Tyreek as a tournament play, but I definitely like Kelsey in cash games. And I think you can use Hunt in cash games as well. You have anything else you might want to?
I mean, I like Kelsey. I haven't been able to, construct a lineup where I can fit him in. Plus, I'm prioritizing Hunt over Kelsey in this matchup. So I just, to me, Hunt is a core play of mine. Tournament and cash, I think he's viable for both. I know he's going to be a little bit popular in tournaments, but I'm okay with that. You mentioned something. His role in the passing game has increased so much. The first 3 games total combined 3 targets. Last 3 games, 18 targets. I mean, Andy Reid finally got this, young back into the same game, the same game planning that he did last year, where he was very involved in the passing game. It's working for this offense. You see it. It's working for Patrick Mahomes. It only makes sense to continue this week. So I like him. I think he's still underpriced when you look at his true upside, his true ceiling. So I like him quite a bit. There's not much I like from the Cleveland Browns. I do want to, mention if you do believe in Vegas and you do think that they're going to be trailing by a good amount, you got to think of guys like Jarvis Landry and Duke Johnson here. They're going to be seeing some targets. I know Duke Johnson is very questionable as far as what his role is going to be, but I think with the new offensive coordinator and the new coaching changes, I do think they're going to get him involved. Actually, what I do have a core play in this offense, that's David Njoku. Coming off that completely. I'm looking at my lineup now. I'm like, all right, I said not much from Browns, but yeah, I have David Njoku in my lineup. I just think this is a smash spot. I like the fact that he didn't do anything last week in a really good game environment. So I think this is a bounce back game for him. We saw him getting peppered with plenty of targets prior to last week where he got 0. And with Baker Mayfield, he's just been pretty consistent here. So I like him quite a bit. I think many people are going to be on OJ Howard or paying up for Kelsey. And Njoku kind of go overlooked here in what I think is a smash spot. He certainly has a ton of talent. We've seen that before. We've seen hit 2 touchdown upside out of him. So ceiling is high. I think it's a safe floor considering the volume we should expect to see him this week. So I like him. He's probably the only Brown I will be putting in my lineup, but I wouldn't hate, if you're interested in people like Jarvis Landry or Duke Johnson simply because of the game environment here for them, and I think that could pay off. Any thoughts for you?
Yeah, no, I love Njoku. Just the game theory aspect, the fact that he put up a goose egg last week in a very chalk position. So I think you could definitely go to him in tournaments, and I think he's viable for cash too. Kansas City hasn't been the greatest for the tight end position. Landry, I'd rather go to if I was going to pay up for Landry, I think I'd rather pay for Emmanuel Sanders or Cooper Kupp. But I think Landry's a fine play. I'm not against it at all. I like Landry in the spot. He's very cheap, so no, I'm not against it at all. I was just building a lineup with him as we were speaking. So. You got me there.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a core player. I just, I want to point him out because I think this is a good game environment. He definitely not someone I'm going out of my way to fit into my rosters. I agree with you. I think Kupp is arguably my favorite play on the slate by far, and it's not even close. I said that Thursday, and now that he's gonna give it a go, it's just even more so now. Just too many great situations, but we'll get to that game soon enough. And I actually like the fact that you mentioned Sanders because he kind of popped into my player pool. And I'm excited to hear more about that.
That's my favorite play on the slate.
All right, so that he's going to end up on my roster before the show is over. So that's a good thing for me. So out of this, to kind of wrap it up here, I think we both agree that the core plays are Hunt and Njoku out of this game. For you in addition for you it's Travis Kelsey. Again, I'll never talk anyone out of Pat Mahomes. He's just in a pretty consistent as it gets, whether it's a good matchup or not. So I wouldn't talk anyone out of it. I'm not going there this week, but just worth noting. On to this next game here. The field situation is garbage from what I'm hearing, man. I was watching the Hurricanes game last night. It was pouring. Just a really messy situation. In addition to that, you got two unappealing teams here in the Jets and the Dolphins. This is a game that the line has actually moved down 4 points from 45 over under to 41 where it opened. The Dolphins have an implied team total of 22 points. Jets have an implied team total of 19. I was a little bit more excited about Kenyon Drake earlier in the week. This whole situation with the field being a mess and stuff like that kind of has just moved me off this game completely. I wouldn't dislike maybe a Dolphins defense or even the Jets defense because I do think this is going to be a pretty sloppy game. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some turnovers or some fumbles, etc. Anything here for you? I mean, for me, it's defense, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's pretty much the Miami Dolphins defense or the Jets defense, and that's it.
Yeah. So another quick one here, guys. It's just we're going to have games like this on weekends like this. That's why I said this is a week where things are pretty straightforward. There's really only a couple of spots you want to pick on. And this next one is not one I really want to pick on either. And that is the Steelers heading to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. 46 over under, dropped 1.5 points from when it opened at 47.5 over under. The Baltimore Ravens have a 23.5 implied team total. That has shifted downward 2 points almost. And the Steelers have a 22.5 implied team total, which has been pretty consistent from when it opened. Give me your thoughts on this one, Bobby. I have very little here.
Yeah, I have very little. This is a second divisional game between these two teams. The first one, I think the over was like 55, and now it's at 46. So I don't really have a lot here. I'm not really targeting anyone from these teams. Maybe Michael Crabtree, John Brown. That's pretty much it.
Exactly. Those are the only guys I would really be interested in here, and that's because – it's not a bad matchup for them. But they're not core plays. They're not, players that I'm going out of my way to fit into my roster. These are guys that if if I have one slot left and they're around there and there's no one really else that I like, I'm going to go ahead and roster them. I don't have a problem with that, but not necessarily players I'm going above and beyond to get into my roster. So I agree with you. I think Crabtree, John Brown are really the only appealing guys. Everyone on Steelers just has a tough matchup. Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, James Conner, they're all smash guys, but this is just not, in my opinion, a week to have too much, interest in them. So I'm ready to move on to the next game. Before we move on, I actually like the Ravens defense a little bit here. We're trying to get contrarian because it's the Steelers on the road and Big Ben struggles. He does have those blow-up games where he throws a couple of interceptions. I do think that they can get to him here and maybe get some sacks. So I do like the Ravens defense. I respect them enough that even though they're playing a tough opponent in the Steelers, I don't mind rostering them because I do think they have upside. Do you agree with that take, or it's not really something you're looking into here?
No, yeah, but I think the Ravens are pretty good point per dollar. I think they're pretty cheap, right?
Yeah, they're 2,500. That's why I'm saying so.
Yeah, Ben on the road, home road splits. That's a fine call.
Yeah, so. All right, so on to this next game where I think we might have a little more interest in here, and that is Detroit Lions in Minnesota taking on the Vikings. This game has a 48 over-under. It's actually gone down 2.5 points. The Vikings have a 26.25 implied team total. The Lions have a 21.75 implied team total. My assumption here is that this movement has more to do with Stephon Diggs than anything else, in my opinion. So, again, we said Diggs is unlikely to play. I don't think we have any updated news on him just yet. And I'm looking now. No, we don't. So, let's just go ahead and assume he's not going to play because everything has been trending in that direction as it is. We spoke a little bit about Adam Thielen at the beginning of the show. Talk to me here about him. I mean, you kind of alluded to that you like him, but you're going to be at least even with the field, if not probably a little underweight here, I'm assuming, on Thielen. So kind of want to get your thoughts on that as to why you're thinking of doing that.
Yeah, so I think Thielen's obviously been great this entire year. I think he's been the best receiver in football. It's just eventually I think it's not going to work out. Obviously, this might not be the week because Diggs is sitting and he's going to get all that extra usage. So I guess you can play him, but I just think there are better lower tier options that you can. I feel like Sanders is in a pretty similar situation. I feel like Kupp is in a great situation, and they're about $2K cheaper. So not that they can match Thielen. Like Thielen's gone over 100 yards every game this year. Like he's obviously a step above, but I think these other guys can get to a point where they can make value and maybe be close. So that's kind of why I'm in tournaments. I would think it would be better to be either with the field or underweight.
Yeah, and I kind of, that's the thing. I kind of agree with you here because I think that price is pretty steep, man. I know he's been so consistent, so reliable. And it is worth noting, I just saw it on Twitter now. So apparently Darius Slay is going to play here. I know that Thielen does go into the slot and he's going to be moved around and stuff, so he's not going to get Slay all game. But that to me is big because he's still going to get some Slay, and it's not the greatest of matchups when he's going to line up against him for him. I still like Thielen, but I kind of agree with you where the ceiling and the expectations can be similar for other receivers that are much cheaper here. In as good as spots, if not better. I mean, again, I'm sorry to be redundant here, but Cooper Kupp is just in a smash spot. Great spot here for him. So I still think Thielen's fine like you. I don't know how much exposure yet I will have. Right now I am above the field. I might reduce that and maybe go even with the field here and kind of weigh my options out. I think for cash game, you don't need to go there. I just, I don't think it's necessary to pay up that much for him. I kind of rather pay up for someone like Gurley and cash. Correct me if I'm wrong because you do play far more cash than I do, but I feel like you're just getting a safer floor with Gurley, regardless of the matchup being a little bit tougher than you are with Thielen in cash games. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think you're locking in Gurley in cash games today. I don't think that's like a drastic take. I mean, he's getting like a ridiculous amount of the market share. Everyone else is going to play him. It just makes sense. Him and Kamara, just plug them in.
Yeah, I kind of agree there. What do you think of someone like, for instance, like someone like Kyle Rudolph here if Diggs is out because he's pretty cheap, and I think he's going to go completely overlooked. I know he hasn't done much and been kind of like a vanilla player, especially over the last, 4 weeks, hasn't scored above 10 fantasy points in any of those games. Still getting 5, 4, 7 targets. I think that can increase this in this game. And I also think that, when you look at the Lions defense, at least against the tight end position, they've allowed 4 touchdowns to the position, which is tied for third most in the NFL. They don't allow a ton of yardage, but I think if Rudolph plunges one into the end zone, actually they've allowed 4, 4. If Rudolph plunges one into the end zone, I think he could certainly pay off that price tag. It's only $3,600 over at DraftKings, and I think he's going to be one of those tight ends that just goes kind of overlooked here.
No, I'm with you. I think Rudolph's my cash game tight end. Like I said at the top of the show, once Diggs went out, I kind of moved off Kelsey to Rudolph. I just think he's in a good spot. I think he's going to see increased usage with Diggs out. On at 3,700 point per dollar, he should easily exceed that.
Yeah, and then Dalvin Cook is expected to come back today. He's going to be in a limited role. So for me, what that does is it gets me off of the run game here for Minnesota entirely. There's just no interest there for me. Would you agree with that, or do you have any take on any of these guys? Because I just think Latavius Murray is not going to see a full workload, and then Dalvin Cook they already announced he's going to be limited. So I would say he probably plays about 20% of the snaps, which that's going to take away from Murray here for me.
Yeah, so last week Carson did really well versus the Detroit versus Chris Carson did really well versus Detroit's run defense. But when Snacks Harrison was in the game, who Detroit had traded for, they went from averaging 3.7 yards a carry on the year to 3.2. And I think that's why Russell Wilson in those situations is probably throwing a little bit more. I might be just reading way too much into it. But I think that if he's going to play more Harrison this week, then I don't know if I want to be on these Minnesota running backs. I just don't think it's a great spot if his snap count goes up.
I'm kind of with you, man. It's a sticky situation, in my opinion. here for this, this group, and with Cook, back in. It's just I don't think there's a need to go there. Any interest in Cousins? I mean, to me, he's a good tournament play if you're running a bunch of lineups because Minnesota just sling it. They're third in pass attempts per game in the NFL, and even with Cook back, he catches passes out of the backfield, so they might run some passing plays with him on the field instead of running in between the tackles. We've seen this. I know Murray has had some pretty good games in recent weeks, but this is still a team that has struggled to run the ball efficiently, and they're going to sling it, So any interest in someone like Cousins as a deep tournament flyer, not someone that in my core play, but if I'm running, say, 100 lineups, 50 lineups, someone I'm going to be considering at least a sprinkle in there.
Yeah, I like Cousins. I think he's good if you're playing multiple lineups and GPPs. I like him, Keenum, and Fitzpatrick, I think, are the three guys that I'm really honing in on. Then obviously probably throw in Cam as my fourth. So, yeah, those are the guys. I think Cousins is fine. I think they're going to have to throw the ball more. Like I said, I think Detroit could funnel like they did last week with Wilson, and Wilson went off to Moore and Lockett. So, yeah, I think I don't mind Cousins.
So from the Detroit side, I'm not really too excited about their passing game nor their run game. I do want to point out that I think they're going to focus a little bit more and emphasize the run a little bit more, and that's why they got rid of Golden Tate, which is going to automatically draw interest for me for Kerryon Johnson. I know this is not the best of matchups for him. I get that, but I do expect his volume to just start moving up. We saw him involved in the passing game last week. I know Theo Reddick is back this week, so that does concern me, but I still think Johnson is the most talented running back in this backfield. Eventually, this team is going to realize that. Eventually, they're going to feed him. We saw them, give him plenty of carries against Miami, plenty of carries against New England, and in each of those games, he rushed for over 100 yards. So I do think if the work is there, he's going to receive or he's going to be efficient and produce nice numbers. It's just a matter of a big if. So something to definitely keep an eye on here. As far as Johnson's work role here, I do think in tournaments, if you're running a bunch of lineups, you can consider him. I know there's plenty of running backs to like, but he just has that big play upside here. We saw him break one for 75 yards against the Dolphins for a touchdown. So there you go. I mean, that's just my thoughts on that. Do you have anything on this offense? Aside from him, I really don't have anything.
Yeah, so I like Marvin and Golladay just because I think Tate's usage is going to go to them, and obviously I don't think that that they're going to do. I know they want to run the football, but I just think it's a really tough matchup. So I'm not in love with Kerryon, and Theo Riddick's back as well, so I think that'll cut into his usage. Yeah, I like Marvin and Golladay. I think they're better plays than people think on the slate. And that's pretty much, what I got. I don't know how much I'm going to have. I was looking at them at the early slate for like cash games, but I'm not positive.
Okay. Any final thoughts here? Any defenses or anything of that nature that you'd be considering, or on to the next?
No, on to the next.
Atlanta at Washington. This game has a 47.5 over/under. Washington has a 25 implied team total. The Falcons have a 22.5 implied team total. 65% of the bets are on the over. Give me your thoughts on this game.
So I like Adrian Peterson a lot. I don't know how much I'm going to have of him, but I definitely think he's a good play in tournaments if you're fading Gurley. Or just underweight on Gurley. I think at like 6K, I think he can really make that up. Just with he's going to be involved in the passing game. He's going to be handed the rock. That's all pretty much Washington has at this point. They're running their whole offense through him. So I think he's a really strong play. I like that's pretty much it, to be honest. It's Peterson, and that's pretty much it for me in this game. I was going to say Julio, but I don't really think I'd get to Julio. You could, but I don't know. I don't love it.
Yeah, I don't have much of this game. I think AP, so long as the volume is there, is fine. And right now Vegas is suggesting that the game script is going to favor him, but It's just one of those situations that Chris Thompson out, we should see him get 20 plus touches here. But if he doesn't get that, I just don't think he's going to pay that salary up. We've seen it a couple times this season where if he doesn't get in the end zone, he's just not getting it done. I could see it. I'm just not going to go there. I kind of like Julio Jones here. It's tough to fit him in based on roster construction, but the volume is there for him. He's going to be involved. If he gets into we always say this. I feel like we say this every week. If he gets into the end zone, if he scores a touchdown, then he certainly has a ton of upside and potential. It's only a matter of time, I think, before that happens. I'm not saying it's going to be this week, but it is worth noting that the volume is just through the roof with him every week. I think he's fairly priced, and when you're getting someone that has 12, 14, 9, 12, targets, you certainly have to consider that. And when this player is scoring, over 25 fantasy points without getting into the end zone, it's just something you have to be, at least a little bit interested in. Nothing else for me here, though. No Matt Ryan, nothing else. No Jordan Reed, no Vernon Davis. So anything else here for this game, Bobby?
No, I think we got it. I think.
All right.
Yeah, I hope.
All right. This game, I think, is where you're going to give me some information that I might have overlooked. And that is Houston at Denver taking on the Broncos. You got Demaryius Thomas, who will start in this game. And this time he will be starting for the Houston Texans as he got traded. This game has a 46 over-under. The Denver Broncos have a 23.5 implied team total. The Texans have a 22.5 implied team total. Give me your thoughts here, Bobby, on this game, because you already alluded to Emmanuel Sanders being someone that is on your radar, and it appears that he is highly on your radar. So enlighten me, because I also like him, and he popped up into my player pool this morning.
Yeah, I think Cortland Sutton's going to be the chalk. So I think Sanders is a great leverage play off of Sutton. Sutton being a rookie, I think Sanders, at the beginning of the season, he was commanding so much of the market share. He still is in this offense in terms of like the target percentage. So I think you have to like Sanders in the spot. And I know you hate Case Keenum, but this Houston Texans secondary is pretty banged up, and I think they're going to funnel to the pass. So I don't mind either leveraging, having lineups with Sanders and Keenum or Sutton and Sanders, however you want to go with it. Sutton, Sanders, Keenum, however you want to go with it. Like, I think if you roster Keenum, you can get pretty much anything you want. So I think he makes for a good move in tournaments. With Sanders.
I like that call. I like Sutton for cash. I like Sanders for tournaments. I'm kind of that Tom weighing it out here because I do think Sutton does have there is some volatility with him, but at that price tag, it's going to be very difficult for him to disappoint in cash, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But again, I think he's going to be like 30-40% owned in tournaments. And if he scores, if he scores 10 fantasy points or 11 fantasy points in cash, you're fine with that. In tournaments, you're not going to win a tournament with that. Whereas Sanders, his volume has been consistent all year. His, the connection, like you mentioned with Keenum, has been there all season. He's been very efficient, very reliable, and there's certainly a ceiling, especially at that price tag. So I agree with you. I think Sanders is, borderline elite play on this slate, and has become a core play of mine as of this morning. So I'm very excited that you mentioned that, and I know you always say I'm not a big Keenum guy, but in my season-long league, I had no choice but to stream him today. So I hope your analysis is correct here, because I am going down with Case Keenum this week in my season-long league. I do have Sanders in that league, so it kind of makes a good correlation for me, which is why I did it. So there you go. I will have exposure to Keenum, not in DFS, but in season-long leagues this week, man. So yeah, I agree with you 100% here. Any love for Lindsey? I mean, I think he's a pretty safe play. I don't think he's someone that you should be considering a core play, but he's fairly priced. I think he has a fair floor. And even if they like you alluded to, they play to the pass here. He catches passes out of the backfield, so I don't hate the fact, or I don't hate the idea of playing Lindsey. Definitely not someone that I'm prioritizing, but someone that if you're playing a ton of lineups, it's okay to sprinkle in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I like Lindsey. I think he's going to be involved in that passing game. He'll probably pick up some of that market share. So yeah, I think Lindsey's fine.
All right, and anything from the Texans side, I'm pretty much not gonna be playing anyone from the Texans. I mean, it is interesting that Lamar Miller has rushed for at least 100 yards in each of the last 2 games, and a touchdown, and he's still cheap. I do think that that's an interesting point to kind of mention there, but it's not someone I'm going to be targeting here at all. He's not a core play of mine. Again, if you're running a bunch of lineups, by all means, but not a situation that, and this is a good matchup. It is worth noting this is a really good matchup because the Broncos have struggled immensely against the run. But I just don't find myself rostering Miller this week.
Yeah, no, I'm off Miller. I like Hopkins. I think Hopkins is another guy that can kind of take away that Thielen in tournaments. Like, that's why I'd probably be a little like with the field or below weight on a guy like Thielen or even fade him, because I think Hopkins is another guy. Hopkins is going to see like 10 to 12 targets in this game. So I don't hate that at all.
Yeah.
In tournaments at his ownership.
And he scores touchdowns too. I mean, he has a bunch of touchdown equity, in my opinion. So definitely someone that should be a tournament consideration. I think he does make a good pivot play. I really do. I do think he makes for an interesting pivot play. Especially like you mentioned, I looked at the projections now, and it looks like Kupp is going to be a little bit more popular than I was anticipating, to be completely honest with you. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, he's projected 17 to 20%, man. I was thinking like I have more like 14 to 17%. That's why I said I think under 17%. Looks like he's going to be a little bit more popular, and I wouldn't be surprised because when you look at the news, it came out Diggs unlikely to play. Now he's officially, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's officially ruled out. Yeah, Amo put it there. So he's officially ruled out. I think it came with enough time here to get people onto Adam Thielen and make adjustments, especially if they're trying to pivot off of Gurley, like you mentioned, in tournaments and go in a different direction. And I do think he's going to garnish some ownership here. So kind of it kind of sucks because I really liked him before that news and before anything. So good call on Hopkins. I really do agree with that. And anything else? I know. So to cap it off, guys, Emmanuel Sanders, we both really like him a lot in tournaments. Are you playing Sanders in cash as well, or you're kind of going to?
I think you play him in cash.
Yeah,
definitely.
Okay.
You play him in cash.
Okay. All right. Anything else from this game? Any tight ends or anything? I know sometimes Denver tight end pops up, but this is not a situation I think you need to go to.
I think you could use Heuerman in deep GPPs, but nothing. I wouldn't go. There's a lot of value at tight end right now.
All righty, and on to the next game, and that is the Chargers headed to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. This game has a 48 over/under. The Chargers have a 23.5 implied team total. The Seahawks have a 24.5 implied team total. Not a lot of movement in this game as far as line. Actually, no movement. The only difference is the spread went from 2 points favored, the Seahawks being favored by 2 points to being only favored by 1. I don't know how much of that has to do with the Carson situation where, he's dealing with that hip injury. But anything in this game that you like?
What'd you say again? You went out. I'm sorry.
Anything in the Seahawks game? I'm saying that the only difference was that movement from Seahawks being favored to 2 now to 1, and I think that probably has to do with Carson, dealing with that hip injury. I assume. I don't know why else that would move like that. Anything here in this game?
I think Carson's active, right?
I don't think it's official. I think he's expected to give it a go.
Okay, let me check that.
Yeah, I think he's expected to go though. I'm looking at it. I'm looking for it right now. And it doesn't appear that that piece of information is out. I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't come out, right now, because this is a.
I thought I seen it.
Let me see here. Well, yeah, we saw optimistic that he plays in week 9. That was reported by Ian Rappaport this morning, but nothing official.
Okay.
So we could analyze this, safely assuming that that he's gonna play. I mean, right now it looks like it, and then barring any setbacks through throughout warm-ups or whatnot, he should be on the field.
No, I'm with you.
So, what are your thoughts on this game? Anything from Los Angeles or Seattle?
I like Carson. I think you could go Russell Wilson. He's been on a tear. I'm not going to go there this week, but I do like Carson.
Okay.
Even with the injury.
Yeah, I think Carson's fine. I don't think you need to go there, like you said.
Not for cash games, for tournaments, not for cash games.
Yeah, I wouldn't take the risk. I wouldn't take the risk in tournaments either. I'm sorry. I wouldn't take the risk in cash games either. I'm okay with taking that kind of chance in tournaments. I'm totally with you there. I don't think he's necessary though. I really don't think he's a necessary play this week. I don't know if there's enough upside to warrant consideration when you think of that situation there. I know you alluded to earlier in the week that you did have some love for Russell Wilson. You didn't name him in your quarterback pool when you talked about who you're rostering this week. Has that changed then for you?
I'm not rostering him in my player pool, but I do. He's been on fire, so I don't. If people with Carson going down, if they're not, if that means Mike Davis, or if Carson isn't to play, I guess there must be more. There could be more emphasis on Russ, but I still like. There could be more emphasis on Russ, but I don't know if he'd make my player pool.
Yeah, I'm with you there, man. I just I can't do it. He's been very efficient, but the pass attempts aren't there. This is one of those games where there's not much. Melvin Gordon is dealing with a hamstring injury. He's going to be available to play. We don't know how effective he's going to be. Those hamstring injuries can always pop up. I kind of want to have interest in Austin Eckler. But with the fact that Gordon's going to play, it's kind of tough to like him too much here. So this is a situation I'm kind of fading. I don't mind a Chargers defense here at all. They can make plays. They're a team that can turn any turnover into a touchdown. So I don't mind them. I'm not too threatened by the Seattle Seahawks offense, but game that I'm not too interested in whatsoever, man. I'm ready to move on to the best game, in my opinion, of the slate and the last game of the slate, if you are.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. The Los Angeles Rams heading to New Orleans to take on the Saints. This game has a 57 over-under. This, it's gone down 3 points since it opened, and 70% of the bets are on the over. So what this is telling me is sharp money is on the under here. The Saints total is a 27.75. It's gone down 3.5 points. The Rams total is 21.25. Actually increased 0.25 points since it opened. So that's worth noting here. Rams are road favorites against New Orleans. Give me your thoughts on this game, because this is a game that I think we're both going to have a lot of exposure to here.
Yeah, no, I really like this game. I like Kamara and Gurley. I think they're must plays in cash games, just with the implied team totals being what they are and the total of the game being what it is. I'm not really high on Drew Brees as much as I was at the beginning of the week. I like his pass catchers, but I think they are going to use Ingram some in this game, and it will cut in to Brees' workload. And also, on top of that, you have the quarterback that they bring in. I forget his name, something Smith or Kasem, that comes in on the goal line, and he can kind of vulture Brees' throwing touchdowns. So, I don't really Taysom Hill. Yeah. So I'm not really that high on Brees. I think if there was a cute quarterback I'd play in this game, it'd be Goff. Like I said, I like Cooper Kupp a ton, and that's Goff to Kupp or Goff to Woods. Woods was chalked the last couple of weeks, and he's kind of busted. He's not really busted, but he hasn't really done anything to impress anyone. So he might be kind of sneaky, and Brandon Cooks is in a revenge narrative game, but I don't think I'm going to go there.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I wrote about this offense a little bit in my Vegas versus Fantasy article, and I said the same thing pretty much you did about Breeze. It's just I can't talk anyone into him, man, and I don't think anyone can talk me into him because when you look at what this offense does when they have both Ingram and Kamara, they're trying to implement a run first offense. At the end of the day, we saw it last year. His numbers dipped dramatically from what we've seen him. He's always been a quarterback that slings it. I don't think that's going to be the case today. I think they're going to try to keep this Rams offense off the field because they're very tough to stop. At the end of the day, they have so many weapons. I don't know if they're going to be successful at that or not, but I know they're definitely, or I think they're definitely going to try here, which leads me to liking Alvin Kamara a ton. And I also have interest in Mark Ingram at 5K. I know this is not the best of matchups, but I think Ingram will get some red zone work here. And I just think this is, at this price, he's going to be pretty much unowned. And the Saints have a high implied team total. If he just pretty much falls into the end zone once or twice, like we've seen him do before, he can certainly pay off this price tag. And I think makes some sense in tournaments. I know you're super keen on Kamara, but would you consider someone like Ingram in tournaments at only 5K?
No, yeah, I think Ingram's a good leverage play off of Kamara in tournaments. But I think there's a lot of value spread out around the board, so you don't really have to go there. And you can, I think, the game script really fits Kamara better, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. I totally agree with that. But Ingram is someone that I was not at all interested in at the beginning of the week, and I have a little bit more interest in him this week, or at least now on Sunday, considering some more digging into this game and what the Saints I think will be doing here. Goff is my quarterback this week for tournaments. I know he's going to be somewhat popular, but I think he's going to be far less owned than Cam Newton. And I just love him in this spot, man. It's a Saints defense that has just been terrible. I think the game environment sets up nicely. I like the fact that he has Cooper Kupp back. And New Orleans has just been, stout. And when I mean stout, go look at numbers, guys. The fewest rushing yards to running backs this season. They've been absolutely really, really, really good against the run. So obviously Gurley, in my opinion, is matchup proof. And I think he can get it done against any defense. But I do think that they're going to maybe rely on Goff's arm a little bit more in this contest than we're used to seeing. We've seen him throw, for over 30 passes several times this season. I think this is one of those games where you can see him throw anywhere between 35 to 37 times. And even if Gurley is, heavily involved like we expect him, maybe we see him a little bit more involved today in the passing game than in the run. What are your thoughts on that analysis? And I know you mentioned you like Goff. You didn't mention him earlier in your player pool when you talked about quarterbacks. Does that mean you're not going to be rostering him today in tournaments?
I do like Goff, but the only thing that kind of scares me about Goff is like his home road splits are like very drastic. Like 30 points he's averaging at home, he's averaging like 15 on the road. The thing that would bring me back to Goff is the fact that he's basically it's the highest total game on the slate. He's definitely gonna make do in this offense. I think he's definitely cash game viable. I just don't know if I would go there. And yeah, you could definitely use him in tournaments. It's Cam and then Goff for me, but I'm just skipping Goff for some reason. I skipped Mixon last week, so I don't know. I just don't have the feel for it with him this week. But yeah, Mixon blew up in my face, so this could blow up in my face too.
Yeah, and I've alluded to this entire show. Kupp, my top play on the entire slate, regardless of position. I just think he's way too cheap. The matchup is just way too good for him. The volume is going to be there. If he was not 100%, or if he was not ready to play, I don't think they'd rush him out there. There was no need for it. He's getting P.J. Williams, who is the second worst graded corner on the slate per Pro Football Focus here, guys. Let's not overthink this. You got Robert Woods also in a good spot against Eli Apple. I think those would be my two guys that I'd be considering. I'm not interested in Brandon Cooks this week. I just think he has a tougher the matchups, and it's just too much. In my opinion, he's just too up and down for my likings. And with Kupp back, it's very tough for me to get off of Kupp here. Anything else? We talked about how Gurley, is someone you want to lock in cash. I'm pretty much staying away from Gurley in tournaments. I never like doing that. It's never fun. But I don't think I'm going to be rostering him in tournaments. Are you going to, put him in your tournament lineups, or are you going to stick to him just in cash?
I'll probably be below the field. If not, I'll probably fade him in tournaments, but I'll definitely have him in every cash game lineup. Yeah, no, I like that. I like that. Well, you don't want to, you think it's a good fade. I think it's a good fade, or at least be under the field in terms of your exposure to him.
Yeah. All right. So that wraps up the slate, but we have a bunch of questions here, man, that we got to get to. So we'll do that now, and then we'll give our final thoughts on the slate once we get done with that and get ready for week 9, guys. Kelsey, Olsen, Rudolph, and Njoku, question mark. I'm assuming, well, this is Jason. So I listed him my order. If you want to go ahead and just give him your order of he asked for top 3. I give him top 5 because he asked for a couple more. So go ahead and give him your top, 3 tight ends on the slate.
I like Rudolph. Then I'd probably go Kelsey. Then I'd probably go Olsen. Then I'd probably go Howard. Then I'd probably go Njoku. But these guys are like all in play. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but I think they're all in play for cash or tournaments. You just have to nitpick for yourself.
All right, and then I answered this question on the chat. It says full point PPR, James Conner or Galladay. I said Conner. Just think that you're getting, you're obviously getting more touch. You're guaranteed more touches from Conner, and I know the matchup is good. He's someone I'm fading in DFS, but this appears to be a season-long league. So in season-long leagues, I'm going to go ahead and play Conner over Galladay.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Galladay on this one. I get why you're going to use Conner. And I think Conner is not a bad play at all. It's obviously a very tough matchup, but he's the only back in that backfield. So I get that 100%. I just think Galladay is going to have a big day, hopefully, bounce back from last week.
Okay. Melvin Gordon, worth the start today. Not for me. Unless this is a season-long league and you have nothing else to go to. But I don't think it's worth starting him this week.
No, I'm in the same boat. I don't think it's worth starting him.
Mahomes at Cleveland or Newton at Tampa versus Tampa Bay. For me, it's Newton. Obviously, it's scary to fade Mahomes, but Newton for me is just too good of a matchup.
Yeah, Newton's the guy, I think, at the quarterback position, at least to begin the day. So I'm with you.
All righty. Rank the receivers. Tyreek Hill, Landry, Edelman, Marvin Jones. Let's just go in a funnel and not price dependent because these guys don't look like they're in the same price range. So do you want to go first or you want me to take a stab?
You can go first. I can't see. Oh, the question's here. I didn't see that.
No. This is in the little queue in the bottom.
Yeah.
So I'm at that rank by Michael Becker. So Tyreek Hill, Landry, Edelman, Marvin Jones. For me, I want to say Edelman, Landry, Hill, Jones.
Yeah, I think Gronk is questionable right now. So if Gronk sits, I'm definitely going Edelman. Then I'd probably go Hill, Landry, Jones.
Alrighty. Thanks.
I know that kind of went against what I said, but I don't know.
No, it makes sense.
For tournament, there's leverage for Hill.
Yeah.
He got the groin injury, though, so I would go with Armando's call before mine.
Thoughts on Coleman versus Washington? Would you play DT or Baldwin as a flex over Coleman? This seems like a season-long league, like a season-long question. I don't like Coleman versus Washington. I kind of respect the Redskins defense, and they have Edo Smith, in the mix as well in the red zone, kind of taking any TD equity from Coleman. I would probably play Baldwin here, man. I'm not excited about any of these guys. I don't trust Thomas enough this week. I kind of want to see how they're implementing him in the offense. I know there's some narrative there, but I don't like going with the unknown here. Any thoughts on that?
I'm with you.
It's kind of it's not a situation I would want to be in, man. But I would go with Baldwin there, set. So hopefully that helps you out there. Would you play Aldrick Robinson on DK today? No, I don't think it's necessary to go there.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary to go there. I think once Slay got ruled in or whatever, I don't think it's necessary to go there. He does have the shower narrative with Kirk Cousins, I guess you could say, from his Washington days. So
yeah.
I like Rudolph. I think Rudolph would be. I'd be
Correct.
more apt to
I think
play
so.
Rudolph.
I think if you're choosing there, I think if you're doing for a flex, I would be more inclined to play Aldrick Robinson Rudolph over Aldrick Robinson in a flex. I wouldn't mind playing 2 tight ends if that's the kind of roster construction you're doing.
Yeah.
Who to start in standard league? John Brown, Galladay, Valdez, Scantling. I'm gonna agree with Bobby on this one unless he has a different take, but I'm going Galladay here.
Yeah, I'm with you. Going Galladay. I think Galladay's a good play. I think Marvin Jones isn't a terrible play either. So I just don't think they're going to be able to run the ball as effectively as they want to. So they're going to have to throw, and you're taking Golden Tate out of that mix. Maybe Tyus Jones, but I don't know if I want to play him. I don't know if it's Tyus Jones, something Jones as their third receiver, but I think that's for like deep GPPs. But I'd rather go Marvin Jones and Galladay.
Yeah, I'm going Galladay out of this group for sure as well. PPR and need 2, so this is not a DFS question here. You got Demaryius Thomas, Baldwin, Cobb, Lockett, and that's Seth. I think that's we kind of answered that question already. So I have there's another question. I have Dalvin Cook and Latavius Murray. My only pivot on the roster due to the bye weeks and injuries is Antonio Callaway. What would you do? Full PPR, thanks. I would play Latavius Murray here because Cook is going to be limited. I don't like Callaway at all here. You cannot play Cook if he's going to play, say, 20% of the snaps. You at least will get Murray in a decent amount, of the plays here in a smash spot. Or not smash spot, but in a good spot, and they might, switch that defense over for when Cook is in the field. So I think Murray might be the safest play here.
I'm with it. I'm with you. I think it's Lat.
Yeah,
it's a tough situation to be in.
Yeah, exactly. It's so we're trying to make the best out of that situation. So I think Lat is your best bet here. Jared Goff or Tom Brady. Goff for me pretty easily.
I'm with you. I like Goff pretty easily.
And then Breeze or Goff, I can answer this for both of us here, and that is Jared Goff. I think we both agree there. That's it for all the questions. Oh, we got one more here in the chat. Is Treadwell any value? I'm not going there this week. Don't think you need to.
No, I don't think you need to. You could use him, though. He's obviously going to see an uptick with Diggs out.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on this slate? Maybe how you're approaching it, roster constructions, anything like that before we go and tinker the last 45 minutes of Sunday before it is a lock?
No, I think we kind of covered all of it.
All right. Sounds good. And let everyone know where they can find you on Instagram and Twitter, where they can ask you questions, interact with you, etc.
Yeah, Bobby Gomes DFS on Instagram and Twitter. Feel free to shoot over some questions. I'd love to help you out.
Yes, sir. And I am at Armando_Marsal. It has been a pleasure. As always, enjoy doing this.
Always.
Yes, it's always fun, man. I enjoy doing this with you every weekend. We have a good time. You enlighten me on some plays that I did not have too high on my board, but I will be kind of digging into before lock today. I appreciate that. Good luck to everyone.
Both ways.
Thank you, sir. Good luck to everyone this weekend. We will be back next week at the same time. Make sure to tune in on Thursday nights. Bobby and I will talk about the Thursday night game a little bit and then break down the main slate. Good luck to everyone. We will see you next week.